The U.S. Vice President says significant progress has been made in talks with Iranian officials in Switzerland, describing the discussions as a good foundation for a successful final deal to end the war. Vance says Tehran has agreed to allow nuclear inspectors into the country. He indicated that Washington could consider unfreezing Iranian assets to buy U.S. soy, corn and wheat.
Yesterday was a very, very good day. We made a lot of good progress. We did exactly what we wanted to do, which is accomplish four things for the American people. First, we wanted to build a mechanism for keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. It is open. We've seen, of course, gas prices and oil prices come down, millions and millions of barrels of crude and natural gas flowing through the Strait of Hormuz that weren't flowing before. But we also wanted to make sure that we actually set up the coordination mechanism so that we could demine the Straits of Hormuz.
Qatar along.
First of all, that this round of negotiation, it was important, very important to take place as soon as the memorandum is signed. And the purpose of the objective of these meetings is to lay the foundation for the negotiation moving forward.
Well, Qatar, along with Pakistan, as you heard, there has been mediating those talks. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Qatar's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said the initial understandings reached by both sides have helped halt the fighting and create a foundation for broader negotiations. Now, technical talks are expected to continue throughout the week at the Swiss resort of Burgenstock. And that's where we head now, where Cyril Vanier is for us with all the latest developments. Cyril.
Yeah, Foley, I know in a short while you're going to be getting all the latest, the updates, the reactions from really across the world and the region, the U.S., the Middle East. I'm going to brief our viewers on what has unfolded here over the last 24 hours in Switzerland, because that's where there's been high-level diplomacy, intense talks, and it's all happened right behind us. So these are the mountains of central Switzerland. This is Lake Lucerne behind us, and at the top of that mountain, those two buildings that you see, that is the resort. You've heard that name so many times over the last 48 hours, Burgenstock. It is the venue where those talks were held. The Americans and the Iranians, they sat across from each other at a table, face-to-face talks. Mediators were with them. That's Pakistan, and that is Qatar. So what have they actually agreed to? Well, the statement from the mediators was released in the middle of the night, around 2 a.m. Swiss time. Let me work you through it. So they described the summit as positive, constructive, saying that progress had been made. And this is what the first day of talks achieved. The U.S. and Iran agreeing on creating a high-level committee to oversee the roadmap for a final deal within 60 days and the immediate launch of technical talks. Those talks are continuing, as Foley said, for the rest of the week right here in Burgenstock. The committee will provide political oversight on the negotiations that include nuclear issues. So nuclear issues are going to be discussed by the technical teams. Sanctions on Iran are going to be discussed, and ways to monitor and resolve disputes to ensure that the Memorandum of Understanding, that's the preliminary agreement between the U.S. and Iran, to ensure that that is implemented. And Lebanon has been a major sticking point, as we've reported. During the talks, the U.S. and Iran agreed to establish a deconfliction cell to support the implementation of the Lebanon ceasefire. Well, a short while ago, Al Jazeera's Osama bin Javaid interviewed the Qatari Prime Minister, who's been in the room with the delegations. Here's what he had to say.
Last time I saw you, you were actually at 10 p.m. at the Divan during a crisis, which you had made your home. Yeah. This time around, these talks lasted for more than 18 hours. We heard that progress have been made, technical teams have been devised. Where are we going forward from here? How does this work? Well,
I think that, first of all, that this round of negotiation, it was important, very important to take place as soon as the memorandum is signed. And the purpose of the objective of these meetings is to lay the foundation for the negotiation moving forward. Let us remember that the memorandum that's been signed is to create the right environment and the right framework for the negotiation to take place and to stop the war and stop the consequences of the war and the impact on the security of the region and the global economy. And that's been achieved. Now, the hard work is started yesterday, and we wanted to make sure that there is a strong foundation is laid in partnership with Pakistan. Yesterday, we proposed all the ideas. It's been discussed between the delegations, and we came up with the whole framework for the technical teams to continue. And we want to make sure that, since given the delicacy of that issue, that the process is institutional and well established, and hopefully resilient from any external factor that can affect
including
the negotiation.
Lebanon.
We hope so. That's why the deconfliction mechanism being agreed upon.
Now, the other thing is that there are many spoilers of peace that we've heard about. There is also a video about you circulating on social media where there are allegations from some sectors of the media that you snubbed the vice president, you did not greet him in the meeting.
I saw that. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, all of us, we are human beings. And I'm like any one of you. I was spending few hours actually with the vice president just few seconds before I entered the room, and I didn't see the prime minister of Pakistan at all since he arrived. So I went to say hello to them, and I wasn't expecting the press over there, and they just made the issue too big. Vice president is his leadership actually throughout the process brought us here under the leadership of President Trump. We've been meeting together the whole day. Since the morning we were together. We continued until we finished at 2 o'clock in the morning, and US is our partners. And by the way, whether we have something between us and any other country, or personally between me or any other one, I would never do it by passing by without saying hello or shake his hand, whatever between me and him.
When do you expect to see him again?
Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks, if we make good progress on the technical, then we will move on.
Joining us now to discuss all of this is Melissa Park from Geneva. Melissa is Executive Director of ICAN, that is the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. And back with us, also from Geneva, is Ali Vaez, Director of the Iran Project at the International Crisis Group. Ali, it's good to have you back on the program as well. Melissa, how does your group, ICAN, look at what happened today and what unfolded over the last few hours?
Well, look, ICAN welcomes any deal that stops the killing and puts diplomacy back in the centre. As we've seen with this agreement, this deal, and with the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that Iran agreed to back in 2015, that was negotiated under President Obama and was constraining Iran's nuclear program until it was unilaterally abandoned by President Trump in his first term. We see that the diplomatic track actually works, that diplomacy through negotiated verifiable agreements is what constrains proliferation, not military action.
Ali, do we have the beginnings, the really embryonic beginnings of a new nuclear deal between the US and Iran based on what we've heard, right? If we sum up everything that we have learned about where they are in the negotiations, with the U.S. Vice President saying that Iran has agreed to international inspectors now inspecting their nuclear sites, you take that, you take the fact that Donald Trump is saying, well, we can't, at some point Iran's going to be able to have a civilian nuclear program. You take those two things together, verification, maybe a civilian nuclear program. Is this the beginning of a new deal?
Cyril, the irony of this situation is that this is the deal that was available to the United States on February 26th, 2 days before the U.S. decided to go to war against Iran with Israel. And the deal that was on the table in Geneva at that time had even a lot of these details already negotiated. And so we had to go through this massive tragedy at a huge cost to the global economy, so many lives lost, to get back to where we were before. But you're right. I think there is the beginning of an outline of what a deal could eventually look like, which is the same formula that was applied in the JCPOA, an Iranian nuclear program that is severely restricted and put under rigorous international monitoring in return for economic incentives. That core of the bargain has not changed.
Melissa Park, what does a group like yours say about these negotiations? You have one nuclear-armed power, which is the United States, trying to ensure, or at least that's what they say publicly, that another non-nuclear armed power, Iran, never acquires a nuclear bomb. How do you look at this negotiation?
Well, as I said, we welcome any deal that puts diplomacy back at the centre and stops all of the killing. But, of course, Iran does not have nuclear weapons, as assessed repeatedly by US intelligence agencies and international inspectors, and as consistent with its more than 50-year membership of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which legally commits it to never acquiring nuclear weapons. But it's incredible hypocrisy coming from the US and Israel on this issue, because we've seen the US as the country that first developed nuclear weapons and used them against civilian populations, and Israel as the only country in the Middle East that does have nuclear weapons, that has never joined the NPT, never subjected itself to international inspections or IAEA safeguards, and which is also at the same time aggressively attacking other countries in the region and committing genocide in Palestine. So for countries that are concerned about nuclear weapons proliferation in the Middle East, there might be more use for them to concentrate their attentions on the arsenal that does exist, not the one that doesn't.
Ali, what will you be looking at, right? What news items or what details will you be looking at as far as the nuclear negotiation is concerned going forward to see where it's headed?
So the most interesting thing I think will be to see if the IAEA has already started talking to the Iranians about developing a set of protocols for accessing the bomb nuclear sites. In its history, it has been a rare thing for the IAEA to do to get access to safeguarded nuclear facilities that were bombed. There might be some serious nuclear safety security issues at these sites. The agency is fully capable of handling it, but it has to negotiate all of these details with the Iranians. I don't think that's what U.S. or mediating parties can do on behalf of the agency. We don't know how much of these discussions have already happened or not, so that would be interesting to watch. And then the second thing I would have an eye out for is already the Treasury Department has issued waivers, and so it appears that both sides are trying to deliver on their commitments on the MOU. But if they are to make quick progress in the 60-day window, they would almost have to have continuous negotiations. We know the technical experts have stayed behind, but if there are no additional high-level serious discussions in the coming days or weeks, then I would start getting worried that momentum is starting to get lost.
Ali Vai is joining us from Geneva. You're the director of the Iran project at the International Crisis Group. Thank you very much. Melissa Park, thanks to you as well, executive director of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. Thanks to both of you. Bringing in now Joseph Daher, also in Switzerland. Joseph, part of what was negotiated here, and I would say a very important part of what was talked about between Iran and the United States was the ceasefire that they both say they want to see take place in southern Lebanon, right? The U.S. and Iran say they're on the same page when it comes to no fighting in southern Lebanon, no fighting between their regional allies, Hezbollah and Israel. And so they have set up this deconfliction mechanism, as they call it. Do you think that can guarantee a ceasefire?
Good afternoon again. Again, I think the main watchword is secularism based on previous experiences where we witnessed, following the October 2024 war of Israel against Lebanon, a similar kind of mechanism process to prevent violation of ceasefire. This was unsuccessful, unfortunately, with Israel continuous violation of Lebanese sovereignty, continuous occupation. This time, indeed, we might see maybe a more significance of the U.S. wanting to respect this ceasefire. This will depend, therefore, on Israel, on the U.S. ability to pressure Israel to respect the ceasefire, but also to pressure Israel in order to witness potential withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces from South Lebanon. Unfortunately, not only past experiences have shown us that Israel's commitment to respect the ceasefire is not really been the case, but recent statements by Israeli officials saying that they will stay until as long as necessary in South Lebanon, southern Syria, and Gaza is not news that are welcoming to our respect of the ceasefire.
Joseph, I think there are many Lebanese who will watch this news about this deconfliction mechanism that involves everybody, including the United States and Iran, and who will say, well, this deal or this system, this protocol enshrines the fact that Lebanon's future is once again being decided by regional and international powers. What do you say to those people?
Indeed, once again, the fate of South Lebanon is decided mostly in regional and international negotiation, this time between the Iran and the US. But this is also a result of the inability of the Lebanese state to fully accomplish its sovereignty. Obviously, many challenges existed, but we can speak about Hezbollah's weaponry, etc., but also Israelis' constant violation on Lebanon's state sovereignty. But the main responsibility resides among the Lebanese ruling class that has not been able to build the capacities of a state to fulfill, the ambitions of its population, whether it comes to its security, to socioeconomic rights of the Lebanese population. If we go back to the first days of the latest war of Israel against Lebanon, the Lebanese army was withdrawn from the south and was not able to guarantee the security of the southern Lebanese population. So, indeed, you're totally right to say that once again, the Lebanese state is discussed outside of Lebanon, but also we have to point out of the inability of the Lebanese state to fulfill the demands of the Lebanese people, not only in terms of security, but democratic demands, socio-economic demands, and the ability to provide an alternative to Hezbollah's resistance in the south.
Joseph Daher, expert on the political economy of the Middle East, joining us from Geneva this hour. Thank you very much, Joseph, for being with us again. And with that, I turn to Al Jazeera's diplomatic editor, James Bays, who has been taking in all these developments since the very beginning, since even the principals arrived in town. And now the principals have left or are leaving, and they're handing over the diplomacy, which continues, to their technical teams. What does that mean? What should our viewers understand about that?
Well, a lot of detail is going to have to be worked on this, and your guest Ali Vaz, I agree with him, 60 days to do this. They've got to work round the clock almost to get it done in that very short period of time. We understand the technical teams are nuclear. They're not going to be working at least today because the Iranians said they hadn't got their nuclear experts here. But then there'll be teams on the thing that Iran wants, which is lifting the sanctions, monitoring and dispute resolution. They want to make sure this time that if there's any problem, they nip it in the bud and it doesn't destroy the whole of this process that now has been set up. But it's a difficult task. Couple of things which are wins for both sides today, but it gets harder. They almost certainly have left the more difficult stuff towards the end. And remember, this is eventually going to, may not be a treaty, but it's going to be treaty-like language and will go into a UN Security Council resolution. So you're going to have diplomats up there, scientists, because we're dealing with nuclear physics, and lawyers to make sure that the language of all of this is completely watertight.
James, before I hand back to Doha, very big picture view from you. Everything that's happening here is about ending the war that the United States launched against Iran on February 28th of this year, a war that has killed more than 7,000 people across multiple countries in the Middle East. Have we got closer to that?
We've got closer, we've got a mechanism now, and we've had a meeting that has continued and ended with everyone saying that it went well. So you've got a bit of momentum there. They say they've got a process now for any problem. I still believe the problem, and there are two wars linked, which is why this is, they're trying to deal with two wars at the same time. The problem still could be Lebanon. That could be the actions of Hezbollah, but notably of Israel and its bombardment of southern Lebanon, its continuing occupation of southern Lebanon, still could be a problem going forward. I think I'll end on an optimistic note and say both sides, I mean, particularly in Iran, where so many lives were lost, both sides actually do not want to go back to war. So that, I think, is worth remembering.
Al Jazeera diplomatic editor James Bays, thank you very much. And Foley, just before I hand it back to you, I'll give you one last look at this venue where diplomacy is happening. It has been the principals, the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and the Iranian Speaker of Parliament, Mohammed Ghalibaf. They met for hours and hours and hours, 18 hours, we're told. And then sometime after midnight, they came to an agreement. The mediators made that public. It all happened there on the Swiss mountaintop resort of Burgenstock. But the diplomacy is not over. As James was explaining, the technical work, the technical talks on nuclear, on lifting sanctions, and several other matters that are important to both Iran and the United States, all of that continues here in Burgenstock throughout the week. Foley?
Thank you, Cyril. An intense few days in Burgenstock, no doubt. And thank you very much for your exceptional coverage of the negotiations there.